In the heart of the current conflict in Gaza, one symbol looms large on the battlefront: the Al-Shifa Hospital, right in the heart of Gaza City. This is not just any hospital. It's the biggest in Gaza. It's a refuge for desperate Gazans who don't know where to go. And controversially, it's also a tool wielded by Hamas. As the weeks pass since the outbreak of this war, Al-Shifa has become a focal point, embodying a challenge that seems almost insurmountable for Israel. Recent evidence released by Israel suggests that Al-Shifa has been morphed into the central hub for Hamas leadership. The Israeli army, while laying the groundwork for a potential strike, has every single day in the last couple of weeks released proof of alleged terror activities that are happening under and around the hospital. They frame this as a war crime committed by Hamas. And of course, Israel is trying to make the case for what would be a justifiable attack. So on Crux Decode, what is Al-Shifa? Is it a hospital or is it the headquarters of Hamas? 2 weeks ago, IDF spokesman Brigadier General Daniel Hagari had claimed that beneath the hospital lies Hamas's central command, directing the fighting against Israel, and also a massive storehouse for weapons.
It is here in Al-Shifa Hospital where Hamas operates some of its command and control cells. This is where they direct rocket attacks, command Hamas forces. Hamas terrorists operate inside and under Al-Shifa Hospital and other hospitals in Gaza with network of terror tunnels. Hamas also has an entrance to those terror tunnels from inside the hospital wards, meaning from different places of the hospital you can go into an underground tunnel that will provide you shelter.
The Israeli army claims there are hundreds of kilometers of these tunnels, both under and around Al-Shifa. The IDF spokesman also exposed how Hamas is exploiting the hospital's electricity and using it instead as a shield. Recordings of terrorist interrogations, some of whom were recently captured after the October 7th attack, they seem to shed light on how Hamas hides inside the hospital and moves in civilian ambulances, almost seeing Al-Shifa as a safe place that will not be bombed. Now, surprisingly, many Israeli doctors know Al-Shifa very well. Since 2009, Arab doctors, this is Arab Israelis, under the guidance of the army and the Shin Bet, the intelligence services, have been visiting every month, performing surgeries and training local doctors at Al-Shifa. However, the current conflict has drastically reduced the number of doctors at Al-Shifa. Once a bustling complex with over 500 doctors, it is now transformed into more than just a hospital. It is now a massive refugee camp. Tens of thousands have sought refuge there, believing the hospital to be safe from Israeli strikes. In fact, Reuters reported makeshift tents in the waiting rooms, in hallways that are filled with refugees, and of course, men watching videos of the Hamas attacks on October 7th. The hospital's history is intertwined with conflict. In January of 2009, during Operation Cast Lead, the Shin Bet had accused Hamas of taking over the hospital and hiding their men inside the building. In doing so, they made the assumption that Israel would not dare strike the hospital, which, by the way, Israel did not do in 2009. In 2014, too, during Operation Protective Edge, top Hamas commanders were reportedly hiding inside Al-Shifa. In the present war, which is one of the most difficult in Israel's history, this hospital is now playing a more central role than ever. Accused of being a hiding place for Hamas during past conflicts, Al-Shifa is playing the role of home and a refugee camp to tens of thousands who are running away from this conflict. Owned by the Palestinian Health Ministry, Al-Shifa was built during the British Mandate. It went on to become Gaza's main medical center. Remember, Gaza was conquered by Egypt in 1948, and all the way till 1967, control of the hospital was with Egypt. It's considered the largest hospital in Gaza. It boasts over 500 beds. It provides about 60 to 70% of all the health services in the Gaza Strip. The decision to bomb a hospital, which Israel has not made yet, although there is reports of intense fighting going on inside, the decision to bomb a hospital is extremely violative of established rules of war, including the Geneva Convention. Now, there are two principles there in the Geneva Convention, one of distinction, the other of proportionality. The principle of distinction, which says that you may never directly target uninvolved civilians. And then there is the principle of proportionality, which is regarding harm to non-combatants as collateral damage during the course of a military operation. Direct harm to any non-combatant, any civilian, is prohibited expressly. Indirect harm is only allowed insofar as the subject to the rule of proportionality. And that is something that Israel is accused of violating.
Hamas must not, should not use a place like a hospital as a shield for their presence. That is as strong a statement under humanitarian law as is the statement that the hospital should not become a place of a war zone of danger. We find these two issues equally important and equally understandable for both sides.
As this war unfolds on three different fronts, there is the battlefront, which is in Gaza, the home front, which is in Israel, because domestically Netanyahu is under pressure and has been for the better part of the last year, and then there is the diplomatic or international front. And the interesting thing is that the interests in these three fronts don't always necessarily align. What benefits from the battlefront may actually harm international relations. Al-Shifa Hospital stands as a complex center in the drama of Gaza's war. It challenges conventional norms. It is forcing difficult decisions on the Israeli leadership in the midst of a conflict that is showing no signs of abating. Ultimately, the call that the Israeli leadership has to make is twofold. One, by attacking the hospital, are they dead sure that they will be cutting Hamas off its knees, that they will be debilitating Hamas in a way that its leadership will not be in a position to launch another October 7th attack? And at the same time, the second aspect which they need to keep in mind, which could necessarily shape the future course of this war, is the kind of international ramifications it would have if Israel was seen as indiscriminately bombing civilians who are stuck inside a hospital premises.